When I was at Teachers College doing my primary teacher training, we had sport on Wednesday afternoons, and we used to. I was rowing at first for about 18 months of my 2-year course, and then I took up basketball.
As a player?
As a player, and with a lot of mates from Teachers College and that sort of thing, so that's how I got involved there. And occasionally I'd pick up a whistle. Didn't know one rule from another, but thought I did. And sometimes Lindsay Gaze would pay me $1. $1.
And where was that?
At Albert Park, on Wednesday afternoons.
And how long ago was that?
That would have been in 1960.
Did you reach the top?
I was a country referee. It wasn't until I'd been in Sale for about 3 or 4 years that I moved to Melbourne, and I even had to go through the beginner's school with Henry Perazzo. No matter where you came from, that's what the procedure was. So, and during the referee school, sometimes I'd be whizzed out onto a court because I was short for one game, and then I'd come back into the school again. But Henry was only preaching John Bunn's stuff.
Mm. So you had already heard it before?
Yes, but you just had to do what the VBRA set down that you had to do. I eventually got onto the state panel, and from there I finished up number 5 for 5 years. Well, I had some good referees ahead of me: Les Dick, Dick Mason, John Holden, Eddie Crouch. They're the 4 ahead of me, and I was number 5. I didn't like the voting system they had. We had one particular referee who used to take the coaches out for lunch before the voting. I won't name that referee. A lot more grounding, training with the juniors and so on, and they come up through the ranks. And I was watching the WNBL grand final at the weekend, and you could see they were mainly kids that come up through the system, the girls. And the same thing was happening with the males. And with the imports have had a terrific impact. Well, obviously Dick Mason had a big influence on me. Because he was a colourful. Henry Perazzo was known as the King.
The King?
I only saw him referee at the end of his refereeing career. He used to bounce along the court. He was a great, very, very popular. Mel Cooper stands out as being an entertainer.
Hollywood Mel.
Yeah, and Michael Aylan stands out too because of his accuracy. Others stood out too. I've had a little bit of an influence in their careers, in Ray Hunt and Bill Mildenhall and so on. I was conducting a school at Albert Park, and a fellow called Bill Owen. He played, do you know him, do you? He's played with CYMS.
Yep.
We had him on court 3 running around in civvies with a whistle, training him, and there was a brawler up in court 4, and he jumped over the seats and got into the brawl, left right into the brawl, and then got back into refereeing again on court 3.
Oh,
that was one of the things. There's one bloke from Dandenong, I can't remember, he was doing a Southeast Pacific game, Southeast. And anyway, he was yelling something at a player, and I said to him afterwards, "What were you yelling?" He said, "Listen," he said to the player, "Listen, if I want to be abused on a Saturday night, I'll stay at home and with a wife." Absolutely. I just got back from my honeymoon in 1966, and I'm on court 1 state championship, and Tony Gaze. I called the travel on him. Well, the criticism come hard and fast from Lindsay Gaze, Ken Watson and all that. It was a bad call, and I just couldn't suck it back. But that's the one that I hadn't refereed for 4 weeks, and I'd come back just thrown onto the court again, and it was very embarrassing. I thought that was my worst call.
Oh.
A travel call. It was when I went back to Sale after being on the panel, and I started basketball up there, and we got a visit from St Kilda and a Yugoslav team called Lokomotiva, and I'd been in contact with Dick Mason to see who the 2 referees were that were coming up, and he said, "You're not getting any," for some reason. And so I got the best referee I had there in Sale, and I took him down the pub. We had a couple of beers, and I showed him how to referee at that standard in an hour. And that was the game, St Kilda and Lokomotiva.
You would have got out of that game well.
And they had bronze medalists in their team, whereas St Kilda had Brian Curl and the usual Robbie Johnson and all those players. Well, I'm a teacher by profession, and my communication skills are good in that respect, and I was invited to take up joining a referee school with Dick Mason as his assistant, and after a couple of years he faded out, sort of thing, and he was still state rules interpreter, and then later on state referees coach was an elected position, and I got elected to be state referees coach. But we just ran all the schools and so on at Albert Park. Then other schools took off at Coburg and places like that, but I wasn't involved there. And then I went back to Sale and I said, "I'll look after the referees, I'll teach them how to referee." They said, "No thanks." So that's the first the rug's been pulled from under my feet. Well, it was funny when I went back to Melbourne, because I had a stint up at Narooma, where we had a motel for 1 year. And we came to Melbourne, and I thought, well, I'll get back into basketball. And Eddie Crouch opened the doors for me at Eltham, introduced me to David Hickman.
Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah, and well, John Matthews has sort of taken over a bit there, and Ron Burgess got me into the NBL. I sat with him in many, many games before I was allowed to do a game. Well, in John Bunn's words, you've got to have a burning desire. Of course, listening to referee coaches is very important, and putting into action what they're telling you. It's no use sitting here and letting it all go over your head through to the keeper. You've got to put it into practice. Well, the best bit of advice for refereeing I ever got was from Sid Taylor, and it was all about learning to read the game. Just like when you're driving, you learn how to read the traffic and everything. In basketball, as an official, you got to learn how to read the game, understand it.
Not just know the rules.
The rules is one thing. See, a lot of emphasis these days is put on game management, how you manage the game, and that's what today's all about.